Hello, everyone. Welcome to FDH Lounge Mini Episode 1917. You have with you here today two of your favorite FDH Lounge dignitaries, Rick Morris and Jake Digman. And we are, if we're together on the show, a lot of times it's either to talk pro wrestling or MMA. It is, I guess in this case, it would be sports entertainment since it's the Fed. So we are here to talk WrestleMania 42. A card which I have no doubt whatsoever that Jake is far more invested in than I am. But obviously, I know this is something that we need to cover on this show. And my gratitude to Jake for coming on and doing this with me knows no bounds, as always. It's always a pleasure. It's always fun. And even though, again, much of what they do doesn't interest me, Jake, but talking about the sport of kings with you always interests me. So I appreciate it, brother.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on, Rick, and I appreciate those kind words. And I guess I'm going to flip the script right away, and I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
On average, how many hours of WWE programming would you say you have seen in the past year?
The past year? Well, okay. I saw SummerSlam and whatever, but like if you're just talking the weekly programming,
Yes.
it might be a stretch to get into hours plural. I know what's happening. But I don't have Netflix
Right.
at present, and I don't really have any interest in watching SmackDown. I'd have, if you're picking up what I'm putting down here and what I'm about to say, I did hear that there might be some things that might be more up the alley of me and you in terms of I'll say, along with Tony Khan, I think the smartest men on earth as far as booking pro wrestling today. But the problem is with utilizing this gentleman in there is that, again, with two brands, and if you're going to have some guys like that that are assigned to more than one brand, there's only so much impact that you can have because you're running two sort of smaller feds together. And the whole thing is too, like, and I've covered this with you before as a guy who's really been more, way more of an AEW loyalist the last couple of years. That, like, I used to have hope that when Triple H took over, it would be like the NXT black and gold days. And then he did. And it was like, oh, but this is still the house that Vince built. And with TKO, it really is the house that Vince built. I mean, you're operating within that, giving as much, I guess, pro wrestling as you can within the sports entertainment universe. By the way, this is minus the civility. Or I'm not civility. Civility is not something Vince McMahon was known for. Senility. I meant to say senility. The
Okay.
senility, the senility that Vince has exhibited for much of the 21st century. But aside from that, I find it to be essentially like the same product and like better in some ways, but not as good as it was a year or two ago from everything that I'm seeing here. So it's a thing where, yeah, I mean, I'm not subjecting myself to a lot of the week to week type stuff because, I mean, I've watched the Fed before. I know what I'm getting, Jake. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with that because there's the problem with it. There's a lot of Vinceisms that I really wish would go away that like are still prevalent. That almost
Really?
an entire generation of the audience has been like. Okay, one of them, for example, which I mean, I just think it's ridiculous, where the suspension of disbelief goes way too far is when somebody comes out to the ring and then they're making their entrance and they go to the commercial break and then they go to an ad break and then they go to a promo backstage and then they go to something else, and the same person who's supposed to be fiery mad waiting to talk is waiting in the ring during the 6 minutes, and you've now killed that crowd. Just imagine in the height of the I'm just gonna use Steve Austin because he was like the Rock back in his day. Just imagine if Steve Austin, the glass shattered, and all of a sudden they go, we're going to break, we'll come back, so cold to be out here talking, and then all of a sudden they go to like 7 different skits in the back, and 5 minutes the crowd's dead, and it's like you're killing your live audience, which in turn kills your television program. Like, just have the guy come out, do all that stuff, then have the guy come out afterwards. You want that buildup. You want that climax. It's like, why, okay, compared to MMA, one of the things that that's been brought up in our events is they always wanted to begin the show with something they called they call like the Parade of Champions, where all the athletes come out at the beginning. And I'm always vehemently against it because you only have that one time for the audience to see the athlete or performer to get that initial excitement. Like, oh my God, there they are! You know, you only get that one time, and if you're bringing them out, and you go, oh my God, there they are, and then they're just standing around doing nothing, you've just humanized them, and they're no longer a larger than life, you know, person, like entity, whatever on the show. They're just a guy, and I
Right.
don't know. I remember the first time I saw that live was when they had the ill-fated WWECW reboot, and Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman were literally just in there screwing off with the crowd because there was nothing else to do as
Yep.
they're watching some video play out, and then it comes back to the ring and they have this blood that's like Extreme Rules match with some people they're mad at. I just, you know, those are just a couple of the one of them at least that I think should be restructured and gone away with because too it's just too far unbelievable. I know it's one of those things amongst many others that chase people away over the years.
That's an excellent point. And when you talk about that, and as far as the degree to which guys are humanized and not in a good way, that's almost kind of reminiscent of as I think back over a period of time. And I get why they chose the circumstance the way that they did it, as far as when they broke Lex Luger away from the Horsemen, but doing it in a bunkhouse stampede where he's like in a t-shirt and jeans, the same as everybody else. You know what I mean? Like, this is the guy that's supposed to be your next superhuman, you know, babyface guy, your Hulk Hogan. And this is the light that he's being seen in when you do that. So the WWF/E, generally speaking, not including what you're talking about, has been at the forefront of the industry as far as presentation and of trying to get these guys over as stars. But it's a thing where everything that Vince was doing and calling it sports entertainment and trying to treat it as something separate and distinct from pro wrestling, it's almost as though it was made in a lab to sort of gel with what corporate America would do with it, because that's what's happening now with TKO. And we'll get into this with TKO on their alleged involvement in some of the big storylines here for Mania. But it's a thing of the whole corporatizing of it. It's easy to see on the surface when you're talking about the monster ticket prices that are not doing any favors as far as getting a full house in Las Vegas either night, and all the things that they do to try to grasp and just greedily grasp for money. But just the whole presentation of it as well, which is a thing where, I mean, and I think decades ago, if I'm going to go back again to like the end of Jim Crockett Promotions and the beginning of WCW, guys like Ole Anderson bemoaning that like corporate America doesn't know what to do with pro wrestling. Corporate America's always looked down on pro wrestling. Sports entertainment, well, hey, maybe you're talking a different style here. Hey, maybe you're talking about something we as corporate America can do business with. And I think that's why it leaves me cold, Jake, as opposed to pro wrestling. That's just kind of where I'm at right now.
And I get that, and I actually 100% agree with you on that. I'm at the point now where if I never go to another WWE event with the way it is right now, I'm content because, and that has more to do, that has a lot to do with the price gouging, which is just ridiculous. Professional wrestling it's supposed to be cheap entertainment for families. That's the whole market of this. Is you recruit the kids in. We watched it when we were kids. Very rarely it happens, but like very rarely do people pop in when they're in their mid 40s and just pick up pro wrestling. It does happen, but you're
Mm-hmm.
more inclined to include kids, and then on top of that, kids have to go with their parents, and it's just become so. It's they are TKO is looking at this like it is a fight night, something I know a lot about. That is a
Yep.
different atmosphere and a different thing that you're selling because a lot of times it's um I see it all the time where you have the people that are in the front row that are there. It is status that they are every show they buy the VIP seats and they sit there and it's all about being seen. And it goes back to the days of boxing with that. Wrestling is not. At one point it was, but it will never be that. And if we continue going down the path that we're on, and I read something they were going to like lower ticket prices or something this summer, which is great. But also at the same time, it's like I've I can only speak for me personally. Um, the I've seen I've experienced so many things and events over the course. I just say Rock Hogan is always my go-to.
Mhm.
Match quality, man, but as far as a live event moment in time, that it's one of those things that's captured in a bottle. Nothing I could ever go to could repeat something like that. And also, I'm not in the same mental capacity, like the same like mindset that I was for when I was, 20 years old or whatever it was when that happened. Now I see a lot of guys that are my age and older or younger taking their kids to shows and their kids, and that's really what it's all about is having those moments with your kids to share something you love and pass on for the kind of people who are into that sort of thing. If you pick up what I put down,
Yep.
and but it's like you're pricing that out. So what comes next? Because the guy that's going to spend $10,000 for fight night is going there because he knows this person is really going to beat the crap out of each other. They're really going to fight. That's the story you're selling. When you go to you might get them once or twice with like oh, I might get to see the people of my youth, which is the one thing that they're still reliant on is it's like don't forget the attitude era. We can't. You bring it up constantly.
Right.
And it's interesting to me to see like the next generation of what's really weird is like, okay, for an example of this one, Randy Orton. Randy Orton is, and we'll get into that, is an absolutely like he is no matter what their booking is, he's going to be beloved that night. Going into because people who grew up watching Randy Orton are the ones who can afford to pay for the tickets to come see the show.
Yeah. That is going to happen. And when you talk about the Attitude Era, one of the commonalities with now, and this is, I'm not going in a direction that you're going to expect at all when I say this. Also, commonality with the 80s boom is that one of the things that brought them to an end was it really had nothing to do with wrestling itself. Yes, the booking got worse. Yes, the product got a little stale, whatever. But what was one of the big factors in it? The economy. The
Yep.
recession of 1990 had a lot to do with it, going in, and then
Yep.
going into the Gulf War. Early 2000s, dot-com boom implodes. 9/11 happens. The economy's in the crapper for a period of time. Right now, and again, as we say this, we are a day into what is hopefully a peace that is going to hold up in the Middle East here. But that's a thing where, again, I hate to say it, it could still go pear-shaped. And if it does, this could be the worst disaster of our lifetime economically. None of us lived through the Great Depression. I hope I don't want to live through 2.0. Looks like we're dodging that for the moment, but regardless, things don't look good. I am convinced that a big part of why the ticket sales are soft in Las Vegas right now is the price of living, the cost of living, the inflation, the way that is eating a hole in people, and you're expecting them to fly out to Las Vegas and pay these prices. And Las Vegas being a town that, and I don't understand the economics of this. I've seen various things on this, like they only want to cater to the uber rich now. And I'm thinking to myself, there can't be enough uber rich to keep every freaking place in Las Vegas afloat. Because you would think they're only going to stay at like the creme de la creme places. But anyways, regardless, Las Vegas is in a weird and not great place right now to begin with. You just were there last year. You've burned out the territory, so to speak, as far as Southern Nevada goes. So there are factors outside of what is undeniably a softening WWE product that have led to where they're at right now, to where they're like, brother, can you buy a ticket?
I mean, so just circling back on something you mentioned with the economy, one of my late mentors when I was in my early 20s had worked on Wall Street. He had worked in the SIBO, and he said to me, his name was Buck Jones, and he said to me, he goes, "You can always tell how the economy is going based on how professional wrestling is going." And it was one of those things in Wall Street they always talked about was so in the 80s during the boom, pro wrestling, 93,000. And it just correlates with everything you just mentioned. And in the 90s, everybody was making money and printing stuff off. The .com boom went crazy, and then that
Yeah.
bubble burst, and 9/11 happened. And you look at it throughout, the course of history. It's kind of interesting on that. I just wanted to, give a little shout out to an old mentor of mine who had mentioned that. As soon as you said the economy, you said you won't know where I'm going. I'm like, I actually kind of do know where you're going on this. So
Yeah.
it's great,
Yeah.
great minds. They think alike on that, and it's. I mean, you you're right on the fact that they're going back to back Mania, the same town, back because let's face it, TKO, that's their town. They think of Vegas as big fight night. That's all this is because they're just going. It's hilarious that they're just copying UFC model kind of thing of
Yep.
well, we come here all the time, so it's fine. But the lesson they're about to learn real quick is they could be going from WrestleMania at what is it, Allegiant Stadium to AWA at the Showboat real quick.
I was gonna say running Sam's Town like Pete, who ran?
Was it Herb
ROH.
Abrams?
ROH did. ROH ran Sam's Town a bunch of times, I think. And yeah, God bless your friend. Sounds like a very smart guy. I will say also too, in a very comedic vein here, the very, very famous example of when Bill Watts knew that the oil bust of the mid to late 80s was hitting the product a little too hard. Have you ever heard the story of how Bill Watts knew that the jig was up and I better sell the territory?
Yes, but remind the listeners.
I will. Kind of the whole thing of like, hey, where are all the hooers at?
Yes.
Because apparently, yeah, the ladies of the evening, much like pro wrestling, are another very good economic indicator. And a cynic like my dad might say that the two go hand in hand. He's not a big wrestling guy at all. So,
Well, in a certain generation, he wasn't wrong. And if it's in this one, at least they're more discreet about it.
Yes, at least they are. So there is that. And so the product is, again, not in a great place relative to where they were a year ago when they had essentially sort of like, and this is something Dave Meltzer noted at the time. He said that the John Cena retirement tour is going to paper over a good amount of things happening. And I think he was proved to be exactly right about this, as he generally is. That like you had that going there and then you take that away. And we see, again, as we're going to get into the card here, uno momento, that so much of this really just kind of like slapped together, which to me is utterly antithetical to way that WrestleMania is supposed to be. This is supposed to be something where, again, you're wargaming out for this months ahead. They should have the whiteboard there at Titan Towers or whatever the new version of Titan Towers is. And, just to kind of like know where you're going with this kind of stuff. But much like I think it was 2 years ago when they had to do the whole, deviating in direction here thing. Is The Rock going to be involved, not involved, whatever. Sometimes a ripple effect ensues. Sometimes, in fairness, injuries happen, as was the case this year. First with Seth Rollins, who ironically will be the one who's back. Braun Breaker won't be back, even though supposedly he's been cleared. So sometimes you have injuries having to do with it. But what becomes is, and what is essentially the story of this year's card writ large, is a large scale rewriting of it this year. And decently into the year, I think we would say, and that sort of ripple effect to where it doesn't feel as planned, as laid out as it was, and some things that are happening here, it seems like are setups for things to happen subsequently. And in past shows that I've done with Kyle Ross breaking this down here, we've talked about that as well. That sometimes, like when WrestleMania, when a match happens there that's a setup for like a spring or a summer program, that's kind of different from what you would generally anticipate to be the case. WrestleMania, traditionally, you and I having grown up on this, it's supposed to be the destination. And that's what's so jarring about so much of the card this year. It doesn't feel like a destination that's been built to for months and months and months.
I agree on that. I mean, obviously, there's the injury bug that hit a lot and changed a lot of booking plans and kind of booking on the fly and, decisions that had to be changed. But you're right. It does not feel like like the big, the story always going into it was like, here's your champion, the challenger wins, whatever. It used to be the Royal Rumble, and they go in, and that was your build to it. And now, and even when they added the Elimination Chamber stipulation, for the other championships and everything, I agree with you. This is an interesting WrestleMania in of that everything feels like it is a another leg in a chapter as part of something. Like, and a lot of it feels like it could be like, thrown together Mania, because I can't think of, as you said, like you said, I cannot think of one match that 6 months ago that that I would have wrote down and penciled in as being on this show, just based on where they were and to where they are. And a lot of that has to do, like I said, has to do with the injuries. They didn't know what was going on with Seth Rollins. They didn't know what, but then there's other things that leaked, that was supposed to be, Rey Mysterio versus Gunther, and both guys are on the show. So who knows what is what is the case?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and the thing of it is too, and going back to the whole thing of like, corporate America doesn't really get pro wrestling. It can wrap its arms around sports entertainment, but even that can be kind of fitful at times. As far as like why they're not selling tickets right now. Now, again, it maybe Triple H might not feel it's in his best interest to say this, but you can't tell me that Ari Emanuel, Mark Shapiro, whatever, you can't tell me that the brain trust of TKO knows enough about this to know, hey, you know what, guys, this feels slapped together. This doesn't feel well enough built over a period of time. I don't think they understand that. And I think that that's very clear. And that when they seek to then impose potential solutions to it, that's what can just exacerbate things even more, I think.
And as we have seen 2 years in a row now, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, I think we have seen that, and we will continue to see how this manifests itself with this year's card. I do believe that I think it's ESPN2 the first night, and I think it's ESPN the second night. So this will be on the new ESPN app, Dealio, but a simulcast for the first hour. So you're basically sort of, the card, it's almost essentially sort of like a reverse bell curve as far as like the part in the middle. I guess the part, in between the beginning and the end is basically sort of the fall off both nights to whatever degree. And I will just say this in advance and preface this, and I'm going to note this as we go along, that one of the ways that I kind of grade what a card has going for it is the number of matches where I would consider them to be plausible semi-main events. So what you're looking for from a card like this is to have more than one semi-main event both nights. By default, you should at least have one. But if you're doing things right, you should have 3 or 4 both nights, because this is the biggest, card of the year, split over 2 nights. The first match of the first night, I think, would qualify simply because you have in it, again, you have Jey Uso, who seems like a million years ago, but he main evented one of the nights last year. Albeit, no, I guess he wrestled for the world title in the first match of the first night last year. So maybe he's in the same spot, right? First match, first night. But you've got Jey Uso, you've got Paul Heyman, etc. It's the Vision with so Logan Paul, Austin Theory, and then I Show Speed, this is the quintessential Fed thing. It's just to drop a celebrity in here. Versus the Usos, who I believe are still the tag team champions, and LA Knight. They are not? Oh, okay.
The Vision are the tag team champions.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They are. Which, by the way, only in this company, because of, and I know you've goofed on it before, the AEW and the titles and stuff. Nobody in AEW has ever been demoted by getting a title. Like Jey Uso, when he was the tag team champions on one of the 2 shows, it's not even tag team champions across both shows. Like Jey Uso was like, bye-bye main event Jey Uso. You're now one of the tag team champions on the Monday show. But okay.
That might not. Did you watch any of the Jey Uso singles run? Did you watch a lot of it?
Enough to know that
I'm going to do a comparison here. It's like the Ultimate Warrior. Once you get past the entrance, that's it. It's done.
That is it.
More and more people started seeing through that.
Yes.
And I think between the 2, I think Big Jim has always been the more talented one.
Yeah.
But I think he cuts the promo and everything. I don't think Jay's good on the mic, but he had that person. Wrestling fans are simple. You go with one word: yeet, yes, yeah. That's how you get over. And
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he took it and got over it. Good for him. But I just think that if Big Jim was getting in that spot instead of Jay, I think
Yeah.
he might have excelled a little bit more. But to me, the Usos are better as a unit. Like I don't know, I never really bought into the whole. I get where you're coming from,
Yeah.
but it's like good for them. I'm trying to elevate, make a star out of him because obviously the audience was behind him.
Yeah.
But we shall see. And as far as this match goes, I mean, what? Okay, 2-3 years ago, sure, you had the celebrity effect of a Logan Paul, and even an I Show Speed, I guess. But how many of those? I mean, is I Show Speed going to be live streaming during the match? As stupid as that sounds, that's something they should do because it's make it like the referee cam back in the day. Don't go to
Yeah.
it all the time, but do something like that because that's why you have him there to draw the eyes onto your audience. Now, Logan Paul, when you mentioned, stars have fallen, I thought you were going to talk about him. Guy who was at one point like an it celebrity that could actually work and actually put on a good match, to he's just another guy now. He's just another
Yeah.
guy on the show. And even just another guy. He's a guy who's filled in as a replacement for other guys. Like, he whatever was I didn't see because I wasn't into his whole the culture that he was a part of with the YouTube stuff, but he did have an audience. My question now is, after
Yeah.
the past 2 years in WWE, does he still have that same audience?
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. And it's a thing where, and it is funny to see that like over the course of the last year, that as far as the degree to which wrestling fans have sort of unrealistically deified Paul Heyman and forgotten about certain aspects of his career and certain aspects of stuff, that everything that he's been a part of the last year, which has been one of the worst years of his career in a long, long, long time, as far as what he's been attached to, that, he gave an
Through no
interview.
fault of his.
Well, okay, but here's the thing, though. You kind of make it worse when you overcompensate, because I saw an interview he gave recently where he was comparing the Vision to. This reminds me of the early days of WCW or of ECW. This reminds me of that locker room then. And I'm like, you know what this reminds me of? That's what here's what it reminds me of. What if we took Paul Heyman and we made him the manager of the New Blood in WCW in 2000? That's what this reminds me of. It's a lot closer to New Blood than original ECW territory, Jake Digman.
I wouldn't go as that bad, but it is very reminiscent of the Rybaxel days when he was the manager of both Curtis Axel and Ryback.
Yeah, and
Where they had the
again,
philosophy of anybody I mean, but those two are, I will give credit, at least Logan Paul and Austin Theory are light years ahead of those two.
they are, but I mean, this is a match where, again, I would consider this to be a valid semi-main event because, again, it's to their audience, to the audience that watches this stuff. They would consider it to be on that level.
This
A lot
is
of
going to
the
be pure spectacle.
pure spectacle. Don't really know who's going to win. Don't really care. And it's kind of a microcosm of the product these days when you say that. I will say the next matchup is a legitimate semi-main event match. And again, no qualifications put on it whatsoever. This is one of the things that they have done well. Jacob Fatu versus Drew McIntyre. And this is a thing where, again, you have Drew McIntyre, who is one of the handful of guys who is established as a star. And we'll talk about this subsequently, that it's not a deep roster of guys that they trust at this point to be in the world title matches either night, which is why you tend to get some of the same characters here at various points in time. Drew McIntyre, interestingly enough, has sort of had 1 foot in that world, 1 foot out of that world. Once again, this year, he is not wrestling for one of the world titles. 2 years ago, he was against Seth Rollins. But Drew McIntyre is at the very least close. He is more or less on that level, and he is the most recent champion before Cody Rhodes won it back. Jacob Fatu is a guy that they are looking to build. And as much as I've been skeptical about what they've done with their prospect development the last couple of years, and this whole thing of how it reminds me of, what they say in football, if you have 2 quarterbacks, it means you don't really have one. When the Fed fans talk about there's this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, I'm like, yeah, you're kind of making my point for me. you should be able to identify just a handful of guys that you feel like can be big stars, and others that maybe if things go well and you figure things out, whatever, maybe it might be plausible. Jacob Fatu is one of those guys. Obafemi is one of those guys. We'll talk about him a little bit later. And seeing him here in this match against Drew McIntyre, my guess is that this match is to really make Jacob Fatu. Drew McIntyre is in great position to be able to do that. Both of these guys can really deliver in the ring for guys of their size. It will be a slobber knocker, and it will be, as far as guys of their size, I'll even go a step further. And this is a match I'm going to reference a little bit later in the night. But the WrestleMania, the one in Orlando in 2017, I can't even think of, what was it, 33, I think? So,
maybe.
Yeah.
The one with the roller coaster?
Yes. So, okay. Brock and Goldberg, that 5-minute match there, that was like one of the best 5-minute matches ever, because that's basically what you were going to get at that point. This can be the Trillionaires version of that, as far as a slobber knocker. That's what I would say. This thing's going to go well more than 5 minutes, and it's going to, the amount of concentrated goodness you got in that match, you're going to get that in this match in 15 to 20, I think, Jake.
I love myself an absolute great hoss fight. Mm-hmm. You know that about me, Rick Morris. When I told you I went back and I told you I went back and watched King Kong Bundy versus Uncle Elmer, and you were like, "What the heck is wrong with you?" Hey, by the way, it's absolutely as terrible as you remember, but that's what you like. That's I viewed it from the eyes of, if I was watching these two in an MMA fight, what would I see? That's what would happen: one punch, an elbow drop, that'd be it, to be done. So as far as this one goes, so I'm very excited for the match itself, and I wanted so badly to see, like, what they were going to do here in it, except for the fact that the stipulation is what takes me out of it, okay?
Okay.
Because, sorry, I've got to switch rooms.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Bear with me, viewers.
Hey, this is nothing compared to the NFL draft last year when we had Chris Galloway in a car, okay? At least you're not driving on the turnpike while you're doing this. Yeah.
This is why I'm not driving on the turnpike.
Yeah. Oh, now you're breaking up, unfortunately. You there, bud?
To me, or just excuses. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. You're back.
Like, there's
Now I lost you again.
Me.
You back? You there?
Am I here now?
Yeah. Hopefully you
stay.
I
can hear you just fine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to start back over? Or what do you want to do?
Yeah. Start with your point there. Yeah.
Okay. So I was excited for this match, when it seemed like this is what they were leading to, but just knowing that the WWE style of booking, and especially when they start off with a stipulation match, traditionally in the history of professional wrestling, the stipulation match is the blow-off. However, in WWE style booking, a stipulation like a street fight, it just gives them an excuse for someone to do a job with not actually having to lose. Whatever that he did something to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I have this feeling Drew's going to win, but the feud, back to the thing we talked about before, the feud will continue because of the way Drew won in the street, and that the end result will eventually lead to I'm hoping a Hell in a Cell where they have like the shades of McIntyre and Punk, how great that was, or just something where it's a definitive winner. That's why I don't like when they do last man standing, steel cage, like steel cage stipulation in the WWE, as pointed out by Jesse Ventura, is the worst stipulation ever. Who wins a fight by leaving?
That is true.
It's the dumbest concept ever in history.
It is. It absolutely is.
I can just imagine if we did a Cage Thunder event or guy to escape the cage. What? That makes no sense.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's just a reason, an excuse to get to a caveat that was to give guys back in the 80s and into the 90s, the heels, a reason to not do a job, in my opinion.
I mean, unless Drew McIntyre is like literally parking a steamroller on Jacob Fatu's bare chest, I don't want to see him lose this match. Like this would be a thing. Like to me, the fact that well, I'll say it again, that unless Drew McIntyre, unless he puts a steamroller on Jacob Fatu's bare chest, that's the only way he should lose. Like Jacob Fatu should not lose this match. Should not lose this match. Should not lose this match. Because again, this is a guy who they have portrayed as being, and it's a little bit fraught here because of some of the you could get into stereotypes and whatnot. Not like they've ever stereotyped Samoans and Tongans before, right? But Jacob Fatu is being portrayed, at least in ring now. He's now giving more coherent interviews, but he's being portrayed as, and again, a fraught word to use, animalistic in the ring, but in a good way, if there is a good way. But like a match where there are no rules is a match he should not lose. Like, I don't want to hear like, well, he got screwed over in that match. A guy like Jacob Fatu doesn't get screwed over. A guy like Jacob Fatu victimizes people in a match like this. So if Drew McIntyre wins, I think it's a big misfire. And again, I don't put it past him, but I think it would be a big, big, big mistake. Speaking of big mistakes, let's get to the build for the next one here. This is a match that when you're looking at either of the women's title matches, they should be plausible semi-main events for a night. Not this one. Stephanie Vacour with the Women's World Championship against Liv Morgan. And they're looking at it like, okay, well, Liv is over and the whole thing with Judgment Day and everything like that. But like Stephanie Vacour, like, well, let's face it, they signed her out of spite after Forbidden Door so that AEW couldn't have her. And you'll never convince me otherwise because it's like, whoa, look at what they're doing. They put the world title on her. Like, okay, but that doesn't mean they're really like doing anything with her. Like, what is her character? What is she all about at this point in time? Versus Liv Morgan is a very definable character, and Liv Morgan, from a personality standpoint, can elevate a lot of what she's got to work with, but she can't elevate this into being a viable semi-main event match here. This is not a match that you'll ever convince me that people care about in terms of the build of this thing and what's been done. And really the way that Stephanie Vacour has been wasted throughout in this. And again, I know I'm saying this about somebody holding one of their top titles, but if you don't, this is supposed to be the Fed where they're all about bringing out the personality and the persona and everything like that. And not just like, oh, so-and-so's a great wrestler. Stephanie Vacour is one of the greatest women's wrestlers in the world. But what have they done to make you care about her? Zilch. And so again, whatever happens here, whatever. I mean, it's probably the death of Stephanie Vacour if they put the title back on Liv Morgan because it'll look like a failed experiment. So my guess is they stay with Stephanie just so that they're not, completely giving up on her. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm guessing that you're probably less pessimistic about this match than I am. All right. Jennings Digman has dropped momentarily here. And we will effort to get him back on Uno Momento. I think he was probably a bit thrown by how lackluster the build has been for Stephanie Vacour v. Liv Morgan. And I can't fault him if indeed that was the case, because it is just, it's been a very, very, very rough build. And Jake is back now. And I was saying, Jake, I cannot fault you if you were so thrown by how bad the build has been for Stephanie Vacour v. Liv Morgan that it caused you technical difficulties.
Well, I was experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties there, but you mentioned, I did catch part of it. You mentioned, like, what have they done with Stephanie's character?
Yeah.
And this is the part here where I'm going to go out on a limb and make my bold prediction like I did a few years ago. I say Dirty Dom turns on, and the Judgment Day turn on Liv Morgan, and Dirty Dom goes with Stephanie Vacour and brings out like that persona, because that crowd is ready to cheer Liv Morgan. They're ready to go nuts for her, and that's just That is my bold prediction there because, like I said, like you said, they need to do something with her.
Yeah,
Liv winning the title back doesn't do anything for her at this point, and they need to
yeah,
use it to make another star. And if they can do
yep,
that with Stephanie, and they can, Latino Heat 2.0 and Latina Heat or whatever they want to do with it, or do
yes,
something like that, bring some of that personality out in her. And I think she would make for one hell of a fiery villain and aligned with Dirty. And the fact that Dirty Dom could go healer again on somebody, on another heel, it would just be fantastic, and the crowd would eat it up, in my opinion. So that's my bold prediction of this one, that Stephanie Vaquer retains after whether it's quote-unquote accidental at the time or not, but the end game is going to be he ends up with Stephanie Vaquer.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh my gourd. That's a clip and save right there. That's a great idea, Jake. And again, they should absolutely go in that direction. I think Stephanie Vaquer could really shine in that role. It would give her the personality that they have not allowed her to show to this point. If she were in that role, Liv Morgan doesn't need to be with them anymore. She would be a very badass baby face at this point, or anti-hero, or whatever you want to call her. Yeah, that would be awesome. Hopefully that's what they do. The next match up here, so they've decided to go now in the last year or two with secondary women's titles on both shows, which, again, I just really kind of shake my head at this, like as though they think that they have enough depth at this point to be able to do this. By the way, if they were still running single brand and not pay-per-views anymore, I refuse to say premium live events, but whatever you want to call them, ESPN shows, okay? If they were still running single brand ones, then I could kind of get it. Otherwise, you're kind of forcing it here that when you do a big show like this or SummerSlam, you have to turn it into a de facto night of champions by wedging all these matches in here. So you've got the women's intercontinental title with AJ Lee defending against Becky Lynch. And again, we've seen them in the ring before. This is a match where, again, these two names here, I mean, if this were the first time out between them, I think it could be plausible that you could be talking about, if this was the first time they locked up, maybe a plausible semi-main for Saturday night. But once again, I don't believe that it is, notwithstanding the names that they have. And I think Becky, as somebody who had one of the great all-time runs that a woman has ever had from 2018 until the pregnancy hiatus began in 2020, I really think, again, and it's the highest of heights that she was at. So even diminishing returns isn't that big of a criticism because she was at a point that few, if any, women have ever gotten to. But I just feel like it's kind of been diminishing returns with her the last couple of years. AJ Lee, okay, there was curiosity about the comeback. We've seen it. We've seen the two of them in the ring together before. To me, it's kind of like it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, it's one of these matches that doesn't need the Women's Intercontinental Championship to it to make it happen. You could just, based off the feud that's there, I think just based on the style of WWE booking, Becky Lynch gets her win back here. She gets her championship back, goes on to do whatever. Maybe AJ Lee gets, one more feud with some up-and-comer, and then, The Undertaker rides out and tells her she's going to the Hall of Fame. And that's and she calls it a career. She's not here. I don't see her and Punk being here for a very long time. They're both, I see AJ Lee, obviously she's a part-time talent at best. Heck, this might be the end of her run for that matter. You never know.
Well, I mean, as nobody's ever explained this to me too, that like as somebody who retired, I think with like neck injuries, and then like when CM Punk would get asked about her over the years, like, oh no, she couldn't come back. Like that sure got glossed over once the paycheck got big enough, right? I mean, I hope it's not a matter of where, I hope it's not a matter of where she's taking dumb chances, just to collect on the money, because again, and she seems like a very, very smart, self-aware person. She's become an author. She's written a lot about her life and lessons learned. She seems like one of the more insightful people that I've seen in this business. So you would think that she, of all people, would know that, like, money can't buy health and blah, blah, blah. But so I gotta hope that her neck thing was never as bad as it was represented at the time. This is a business built on a work. So hopefully they were overplaying how bad her neck was. The next match here, boy, how's this for a segue? A match that could lead to neck issues potentially here. Although, you know what? I thought initially this was maybe going to be a tables match, but I guess it's not. So it might not be as hard on the next. Just a fatal four-way tag team match for the women's tag team title. Irresistible Forces, Nia Jax, Lash Legend. Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss is another team. Bayley and Lyra Valkyrie, and the Bella Twins will be back for this one. So, like, again, this is another one where it is what it is. Let's wedge a bunch of women into this match that we don't have another place for them on the card. It serves as a viable thing to keep Charlotte out of one of the semi-main event matches or women's title match or whatever you would want to call it on either night here, because I guess they regard it as a complete non-negotiable that Charlotte Flair is going to be on the card. So she's here in this match. And in fairness, her and Alexa Bliss have been a surprisingly good tag team. Not that they both don't bring a lot to it on their own, but the chemistry that they have formed as a tag team is a tribute to both of them. Nevertheless, again, I mean, if I were even a fan of their product in the year 2026, I don't think that this would be a match that I would be up for, much less the way I feel about the product now.
This is what they call the good old-fashioned bathroom break match.
Yep.
Fortunately, I have a feeling no matter how good of a performance they do, this is going to go back to the thing, to quote Rick Morris, of moment mania, that you like to say we're all about making moments. And
yes,
whether they deserve it or not, the Bella Twins are going to win the damn tag team titles in order to do that moment, because they never have. So they can get their WrestleMania moment. And I think that's what this is going to be, because let's face it, Charlotte and Lexi are eventually going to split up. They're going to split up the other two, and by the other two, I mean Lyra and Bayley. So the only thing I don't think they're going to have a long run with the belts, but I think they're going to do that and create that moment, and this is going to be that. And, is what it is. And I don't think they're going to pin the champions. I think they'll pin, I don't know, pin, Lexi after Charlotte screws up, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Someone miscommunication, something, or pick anybody other than, I don't think it would be the champ. So, you could take the same scenario with Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Same situation, but I think the end result's the same. It ends with the Bella Twins as your WWE Undisputed or whatever women's tag team champions.
You know what? If they're going to do that, if they're going to go all moment mania on this thing, then can we at least get AI Howard Finkel to appear on the Titantron to make the announcement? And new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, the Bella Twins. Let's at least do that, Jake.
No, I'd rather just see the host Johnson walk out and tip his hat.
Well, again, this will be a match that will just basically be there. The next match, I'm going to compare this next one here. I think this is a legitimate semi-main event match for the night. I'm going to compare this to a match earlier in the night as far as how impactful I think it can be, and in terms of how much it can deliver bell to bell. Seth Rollins versus Gunther in a singles match, which again, as far as build goes, all I know is again, as a fan of the good old AEW, I find myself having to fend off criticism a lot of times of like, well, they deliver matches, but where's the storyline between the competitors? Well, okay, Fed fans, what do you got for this one here? I mean, I can see where they're going with this. My headcanon is probably going to be what ends up playing out here, because Gunther's already dropped a hint to Paul Heyman about this. This is probably going to lead to Paul Heyman, you owe me a match with Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. This is the match where he gets to retire. Where he gets to retire Brock Lesnar, which, by the way, this is where a gimmick can become a little bit of a dead end for a performer. So Gunther, having retired Goldberg, John Cena, and AJ Styles, by the way, it would seem like there's nowhere to go but down after that trifecta, but like, was the match with Ray really was that going to be for his career? I wasn't hearing that reported on, but like, you can't do him and Ray at Mania. Ray loses, but then he's back wrestling again, right? Like, the whole point of Gunther is that he retires legends. And so they dodged a bullet, not putting that one together, because I don't think they're ready to tell Mysterio Sr. it's time for you to retire. Now, Seth Rollins here, the irony is he is at the point of 11 years of being a main eventer in the Fed, which is, an eternity in that place. So, I mean, like Seth Rollins is probably borderline at the point of where like, hey, I challenge you for your career. They're not going there with this match. And well, they're not, because Seth Rollins is one of the few guys, like I said before, he's above the glass ceiling here. Gunther, interestingly, sort of has one foot on either side of the glass ceiling at this point. This is a guy that didn't have a spot on the card until this match came together after the Ray match. And the fact that they were looking to put him in with Mysterio, with all due respect, and I've seen Mysterio on one of these Smart Mark message boards referred to as maybe the greatest TV wrestler of all time, which, when you think about it, you could make an awfully good case for that. But nevertheless, in the year 2026, that is not who Gunther should be wrestling at WrestleMania after he's retired that trifecta of guys, particularly if it's not a career match against Rey Mysterio. It's a step down in 2026 to wrestle Rey Mysterio because of the way that he's been portrayed over the years. He's not portrayed as a main eventer at this point. Seth Rollins is. The match makes sense if they go in the direction of Gunther versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, if this is the beginning of the setup for that. But again, you're using WrestleMania to set up something else here. You're giving us two great wrestlers together who are going to give a great match, probably 4.5 stars if everything's firing on all cylinders. But how they got here to this match is extraordinarily ragged, Jake Digman.
Oh yeah, it is ridiculously ragged. But I think coming out the other side of this, none of that will matter. Only because I think they are going story. Being to versus Brock Lesnar for his career at SummerSlam. That makes perfect. I also think this match is going to be used. It is as the catalyst for the return of Braun Breaker, who has been cleared to come back, and we're going to get everything back on track with that feud. Is what this was supposed to be to begin with. So unfortunately, it is a placeholder. It is a thrown together thing, but with what was thrown together, I think we're going to get much better than we would have had it been the Gunther v. Ray. I think we're going to end up with a kick-ass wrestling match that's going to steal the show on night one. That's going to be a lot of fun. I think Gunther's going to get the win to further the story along there, and whether it be at Mania or the Raw afterwards, it's the return of Braun Breaker, and then we're off and running again with Rollins versus Division.
Yeah, and there's been some thought that maybe Braun Breaker ends up costing him the match here, which again, and the thought being, hey, him versus Seth Rollins could help carry us through the spring period here. But again, the notion of using WrestleMania to set up anything else, that's one of the myriad of factors we're talking about before here with the slow ticket sales this year. The sense that WrestleMania is not this year a destination, but it's a jumping off point to the next thing. You're not selling out a football stadium on the jumping off point for the spring tour, Jake Digman.
I mean, are we going to do it? Are we going to do 2 nights of Backlash?
Yeah. Yeah, from another football stadium. I think not after the experience we're having here. Maybe they'll hold it in Las Vegas again if they're feeling really dumb. But
I hear the showboat's open.
Yeah, exactly. The main event of night one, Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton with, I can't even believe I'm saying this, with Pat McAfee. Singles match for the undisputed WWE Championship. So, again, not trusting in and of itself the whole thing of, you have the built-in story of Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, master versus pupil, whatever. I will say one of the funniest things I've seen on Twitter recently, and this covers a lot of ground, is how pissed off is the one juror in Mississippi who pushed to acquit Ted DiBiase Jr., hoping he would be the voice on the phone. I mean,
that's great.
I knew you would enjoy that. I knew you would eat that up. But again, it's one of those things. The irony of the fact that Randy Orton is going to get cheered here is the sense of, if you go back to the breakup of Legacy that was done at what was it, WrestleMania 25 in 2010, this is not something that's really much remembered. But that feud, because generally speaking in wrestling history, double turns are rare and remembered. Hart and Austin. I'd even go so far as to say Ziggler, Del Rio. We remember them. We remember the things that happened here. This is one people sleep on, is that like Rhodes and DiBiase were getting so booed as a couple of wimpy a-holes, basically, who were kind of whiny about Randy Orton bullying them, that it ended up being a double turn. And it's like, screw it. We're going to go with Randy Orton as the de facto face in this feud. And here, it's not exactly that. Randy Orton's done a heel turn, but it's a thing where you talked about this before of like that there's people who grew up on Randy Orton and, are nostalgic for him and whatever. And like, I'm not trying to be mean here, but I feel sorry for those people. I pity those people. Like, I grew up on some real badass wrestlers and stuff. Randy Orton has been somebody for most of his career who's bored the piss out of me. Just largely because, again, he always looks like he's mailing it in. People make these comparisons to Barry Windham, and like maybe physically there's some resemblance and they're lanky and they can do this and that and whatever. But it's like Randy Orton, it just always looks like he's got a book of stamps that he's getting ready to mail it in with. Has just bored the piss out of me outside of the RKO. And so, him and Cody, they're going to have a decent enough match, shades of Cody and John Cena at WrestleMania a year ago. I mean, Cena was able to go out there and do probably about what Randy Orton's going to be able to do here. And then we're just going to kind of see how it goes. My guess is that it's Cody coming out with the title at the other end here. Maybe they decide to run with Randy as a heel champion here. I don't know. I mean, it is the year 2026. So, I mean, Randy Orton having any kind of shelf life in a position like this, I realize the rest of the world's not as jaded about him as I am, and I'm sure you're not. So, take it away with what I'm sure is going to be another point of view on this, Jake.
So I find it interesting that Randy Orton has this like new lease on life in like 2026. That even going back to like 2025. That I mentioned the dads bringing their kids to the shows now. Apparently everybody forgot about Chinlock Mania, and just like all this things that like even when Randy quote unquote turned heel, I just thought he turned more. If you went by the crowd reaction, booked Cody Rhodes. You mentioned like him and Legacy, and they were like these whiny old twerps, and like him and DiBiase. I don't see much has changed on it. Everything of the booking of Cody Rhodes to me is he's been the heel the entire time since he came back. Like, I don't understand the whole like and what they've done to say, oh, he's a babyface, other than his dad was Dusty Rhodes. Everything to me that he does is self-serving. In his character, I mean, not the person, but the character. It's like it's all self-serving, and it reminds me too much of the shades of the John Cena babyface booking back in the day, where how they totally booked him as a babyface doesn't help him at all. And that, like, when people turn on him, they always cheer for the people who turn on him because they want to see him get his ass kicked, because he's not like it's hard to describe, but I don't feel like he connects to the audience in the way that is expected to be. Like, I don't get the Hogan, Austin, Cena vibes. I get like, I get a politician vibe. Like, he's telling you something, but he doesn't mean it. And I think that's part of the reason why and again, it all boils down to like the way the character's booked. And we're going to put Orton, it's what you Well, I could see them going one of two ways. See them, having Cody.
You're breaking up again, buddy.
Interested in now?
Can
you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. One, thanks to the way they've. I'm the least interested in it now. No better way to sell a stadium by having a podcast host come on your show and tell them how much your show sucks and we're all idiots for watching it. Yeah, because that's often worked in the past to sell ticket sales. No one likes the shooty shoot stuff, brother. It doesn't work. Nobody wants to watch a show and be like, oh my God, you're absolutely right about this, but you're not supposed to say it on the show. It didn't do anything to drive ticket sales and shit like that. It makes people just not want to tune in. So this is one I'll watch it. I'll probably have a few cocktails in me by this point because I'm going to be doing both shows on night 2. So I'll be watching back-to-back shows. So by this one, hopefully I'm feeling pretty good, and hopefully it's just I hate to say it, but fun. I don't know. I think it's going to be an overbooked WWE main event mess with twists and turns, and we'll see what happens. And a ref bump or the ref stays dead for 20 minutes. I mean, are they going to do that back-to-back nights? Probably. Who knows? But yeah, I just put a gun to my head. Fine, I'll say Randy Orton wins to a thunderous ovation. But I could also very much see Cody Rhodes winning to a John Cena WrestleMania 22 response.
Yeah, I could see that. A couple thoughts on this. I mean, as far as, again, the shooty shoot stuff, the absolute nadir of any of that, which I've already referenced one. But if I'm making multiple references to WCW 2000 when I'm talking about your product, things are not going well, okay? This is Russo 2000 stuff as far as whining about the product. And then, like, when the McAfee thing got over like a wet fart, both Cody Rhodes and CM Punk going to the who booked this crap stuff. Like, you don't want to do that. No matter how bad it was, you don't want to get to who booked this crap. You don't want to do the whole fake shoot, thing here. You don't want to do that. But they're doing it anyways. And when you look at this, when you look at the way that the booking has gone with Cody Rhodes, you make a very good point that there's real comparisons to how they botched it with John Cena over the years and made him the most unlikable babyface of all time. Quote unquote babyface, I think we'd have to say. But I think part of it is, I just saw somebody making this point on another one of these Smart Mark message boards recently. With Cody Rhodes, it's a thing where he's got to complete the story. That was 2 years ago.
When story sucks. I want to read something else.
But when it's like he has to finish the story. He has to finish the story. But by definition, what lies beyond the finish of the story? For Cody Rhodes, it was all about doing what his dad had never done, holding the title his dad had never held. That was 2 years ago. So it's a thing where, like, I'm so sick and tired of all the goofs out there on the internet that love to say, oh, Hangman Page, it's all in the chase with that guy. Just because he's had 2 epic chases and he's had 2 title reigns that haven't necessarily been the longest. Like, again, his title reigns haven't lived up to the chases, but that's because it's been 2 of the greatest chases of the 21st century, probably. Hangman Page takes a lot of unfair crap about the title reign never lives up to the build. What about Cody? What the hell's happened with Cody in the last 2 years that's come close to the build of him going after Roman Reigns and finally getting the job done there? To a term that I used before, he gets the title back from John Cena last year on a wet fart of where, they do a panic John Cena face turn 2 days before the match or the day before or whatever the hell it was. And then it was a really good match, but it was just like, what are we doing here? And these meandering feuds that he has with guys. Yeah, that they don't know how to book them. Right?
They get panicked and they press a button.
They do.
They press. It's not even a button. It's the Men in Black that you stare into, and it's like, hey, you saw none of this. Boop, never happened. It's like, what?
Yeah. That's what they love to do. They love to retcon things from history, and it becomes a matter also where they have him in a spot here. Now, I will say this in a complimentary sense of what they've been doing with him since the beginning of the year. I referenced this to you off air. This is not something you're seeing, but this is something that I'm seeing. And that's the whole thing with wrestling. It's all about the individual perception here. But I think Cody's been more interesting since he lost the title to Drew, and then there was the chase and got it back, in the sense of where they're not going to go all the way with this like they did with Bret Hart in 97. There's not a Cody heel turn coming, but the lead up to it, like Bret, when he first came back, in late 96, he had the really good match with Austin, but then he was kind of in no man's land, like loses the title and whatever. But like as he got more and more frustrated and more bitter, Bret Hart in the lead up to WrestleMania 13, an all-time putrid WrestleMania outside of, the match or two that really kind of stand out. But as far as the build and everything else on the card, The product was not in a great place at that time, to put it mildly. But what they were doing with Bret, even before he snapped and turned heel, or turned heel in the United States, face on the rest of the world, that part was interesting. And I'm seeing shades of that with Cody. Like, you're not liking what you're seeing, and I get that, but like, and it's coming off as whiny to you. And I understand how that could be the case. But like, to me, they're trying to give Cody that edge like Bret had in early 97. And I'm not sure, some of it might be a swing and a miss, but I applaud the effort. I got to be fair here. For as much as I criticize the product, where I see them trying to do something, I think they're trying to make him more interesting. I think they're trying to make him less of a pure white bread babyface, because that's what's getting him booed. It's been unsuccessful, Jake. I'll give you that.
But
it's been
the problem
unsuccessful.
is they've only done that in the past month.
Right. Well, ever since he lost to Drew, though, I think he got more. Okay. Then he was going after Jacob Fatu, and he seemed like more of a true tweener. Jacob Fatu, I think, was the face. Yeah. That's what I'm like, making Cody more tweener-ish at various points in time. Now he's just kind of back to being a face against Randy Orton. So in a way, and we're really in the weeds here, I think it's because they're deviating and they're going back to pure baby face against evil Randy Orton. I think he was more interesting when he was that tweener character that they were moving towards. And I think that's the way forward with Cody, is that you have to make him this guy where it's like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of taking all this crap from people and the people that think I'm being handed stuff and this and that and whatever. I'm sick and tired of that. You want me, come get me, whatever. And not be as much of a fan pandering putz as he's been really ever since he got back to WWE. Because again, they're starting to get to the point where he got to in AEW. And in AEW, he resisted turning heel. And here, there's no Tony Khan that's going to say to him, whatever you want to do, boss. No.
Right.
No. Here, somebody's going to force him to, and that's where push is going to come to shove. And maybe there's a double turn on the horizon here with these two, but I don't think so. Not here, not now. And with McAfee being in there, and I'm not a McAfee guy at all. I mean, it's just his whole shtick has never gotten over with me, whether it be his talk show or anything else. He's just, he's a dumb jock that says bro a lot is what I consider him to be. I've never been interested in Pat McAfee, so it's not doing anything for me. And for my cynicism about the company, I just regard this as like the quintessential thing they could do, is to drag Pat McAfee into the middle of this and just obviously make it more of a stink bomb.
I just think Pat McAfee is horribly miscast in this. He could add something to the product as an announcer or whatever, as the enthusiastic representative as a fan. But this is just it makes no sense, and it's just dumb.
It is dumb, and I don't know where they're going to go with this. And
it'll disappear. It'll disappear on Monday. They're going to go nowhere with it. It'll be gone. It'll be never brought up again. It'll be like The Rock coming back and at whatever that pay-per-view was where he counted to 3 and slit his throat. It'll go nowhere.
Yep. And the one thing we know is that this is going to be overbooked tripe, and that's how they're going to end night one. Night two is going to begin with a bang, a legitimate semi-main event match. A match that you could have made a great argument for main eventing night one instead of Cody and Randy Orton, and some people thought they were going to go there. My guess is they would have, except that this is going to be probably too short for that to be the case. And that, again, that's putting a lot of pressure on Obafemi to be in a main event slot. He will be in there against Brock Lesnar. And when I talked about this before with Jacob Fatu versus Drew McIntyre, that would be sort of like the ultimate sort of much longer version of the concentrated greatness of Brock Lesnar Goldberg at WrestleMania 33 in 2017. This is going to be sort of half of that. It's going to be about half as good, half as long, whatever. Better than the greatness of Brock and Goldberg, because it's going to be longer. And they're going to be throwing a lot of bombs and whatever. But Oba is probably still too green. Brock is probably at this point too old to be able to replicate what Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre are going to do. But I almost feel like comparing it to that match is unfair. This is going to start off night two with a real bang. And like I said, I think a longer version of that match that was so epic as a 5-minute classic in 2017.
I'm going to disagree with you, Rick. I do not think this is going to be longer than that. I think by the way, this is the match that I'm looking forward to the most of both nights, okay?
Okay.
And I think this is going to be under 5 minutes, and I
Okay.
think Oba Femi is going to squash Brock Lesnar, and I think Brock Lesnar is going to make Oba Femi look like $1 million. I think Brock's going to try for Suplex City. He's not going to be able to do it. He's going to go for the F5. He'll F5 him. Oba will kick out at 1, get back up, kick him in the face, and that's it. I think Brock Lesnar's entire goal here is to make this kid look like $1 million on his way out the door. And I think this is going to be somewhere in between the Goldberg-Lesnar squash of Survivor Series and the Goldberg-Lesnar WrestleMania match. I think Brock might get one offensive move in to sell the fact that, it has no effect on Oba. And I think Oba's just going to squash him. I think he's going to put his foot on his chest. I think he's going to pin him 1, 2, 3, and you're going to see Paul Heyman stand with that aghast look on his face, similar to when the streak broke, like, what the hell just happened? And I think by putting it on ESPN, you make a star.
Fascinating. I might have agreed with you if not for the fact that the build has been very one-sided. The build has been so
and I think that's
Oba.
on purpose. Yeah, I think that's on purpose because traditional wrestling booking says, well, Brock's got to get his heat back. I don't think Brock cares at 47 about getting his heat back, okay? Brock's done enough. I think on this run, Brock Lesnar is here to, dare I say, give back to the business, and I think he's going to give back in a big way by bucking the trend of what traditional booking is. I think it was Brock Lesnar's entire idea for have him get flattened out the entire time, and then to go in there, it's an MMA style booking, and then Oba destroys him in under 3 minutes. Well, it just says, oh my God, this guy is legit. If Brock puts him a fight, then it's like, okay, no. If Oba comes in and just squashes him, he's made.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of logic to what you're saying. I still believe my scenario, but there's a lot of logic to what you're saying. The only thing of logic that doesn't really factor in is the fact that you're going to have to basically feature this next match on ESPN when, in fact, it'll be an entertaining car crash. But I don't know if this is necessarily the match you want to put on ESPN since it's so thrown together. 6-pack ladder match for the Intercontinental title. Penta, the champion, versus Javon Evans versus Dragon Lee versus JD McDonough versus Rusev versus Rey Mysterio. And look, 6 guys who can absolutely kill it in a setting like this. No question about it. But thrown together, and you and I were joking about this off air, a thing of like, even worse than like the Phantom Intercontinental title tournament of 1979 or the WWF Championship tournament of 1963 from Buenos Aires back in the day here. This is a thing. Those were at least Phantom tournaments. This was a retrospective tournament. Like, hey, remember the matches on that obscure streaming show? Well, we've now decided that they were qualifying matches for this ladder match. And to which I'm looking at this like, how freaking incompetent can you be? Okay. We talk about like, making a build for WrestleMania or whatever. Like, you couldn't schedule out over the course of like several weeks. Talk about proof that the booking is absolutely week to week to week with no kind of sense of what happened afterwards or comes next. This is the kind of thing where, again, you should have been doing qualifying matches over a period of time here, but no. They end up going the way that they go. And again, I wonder how an ESPN audience is going to react to this. I mean, it's going to be an entertaining car crash, and you have guys who are going to be exceptional in this climate as far as being able to do the spectacular stunts. But I just kind of wonder to what end. I wonder the degree to which, I think the live audience is going to be key. If it gets over with the live audience, maybe it does to the ESPN audience at home, but who knows?
The beginning of this match is gonna like drag because the crowd is gonna be so amped up from the Oba Femi Brock Lesnar spectacle that they're gonna be like, okay, and like I think Penta will get a reaction for him coming out. Obviously, Ray. Nope, they won't care about anybody else other than those 2.
Okay. Well, I could see that being the case. The funny thing is that like Rusev supposedly left AEW because of his placement in like random matches like this, only to go here. And like, this is by far the biggest thing he's done since he got back, is to be placed randomly in this ladder match for the Intercontinental title. So for Rusev, meet the new home, same as the old home, Jake Digman. That's what it seems like.
No crap. That's, yeah, he's, yeah.
All right, Jakey having some technical issues again here, and he may be potentially dropping. We shall see. You back? Okay.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
All right. Last thing I said was,
Jake is doing the Dr. Frankenfurter gimmick right now. I see you quiver with anticipation. Are you back now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You were about to make your point, and then you went all Doc Frankenfurter on us.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, I don't know. I just think this is to put a button on it. New home is the same as the old home, and hopefully by the end of it, one or two people see. Oh, hey, guy's cool. The ESPN audience goes. I just feel like this is thrown together, and it's just filler, unfortunately.
It is. It is absolute filler. The next match, I find it very. Yeah, you're going to shake your head at the analogy I'm going to make here. I find it very fitting that this next match, Jade Cargill versus Rhea Ripley, as Jade Cargill defends the women's world championship, or the women's championship match. I find it fitting that this match is in Las Vegas because it reminds me of a past pro wrestling match in Las Vegas, Jake Digman. Would you like to take a stab at which one I'm talking about in this regard? You probably won't come close.
No, I won't come close. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Halloween Havoc, 97, or 98 rather, 98. Diamond Dallas Page trying to carry Goldberg to a passable match, which he was able to do. And Rhea Ripley is, I think, as good as, or no offense to DDP, better than DDP. Rhea Ripley is one of the best in the world. She can carry a lot of wrestlers out there, even somebody as green as Jade Cargill. And it just, Jade Cargill has continued to be, $1 million body, 10-cent execution, we'll call it. I'm not going to talk brain or whatever, but at the very least, execution in the ring. And again, just same as she was when she was in AEW, where everything has to be booked around her limitations. And that's the way that wrestling has been since time immemorial. You go back to the early days of Nikita Koloff and Goldberg, of like, they had to be booked as monsters because you couldn't count on them to do anything else.
Right.
That's how Jade continues to be. And there have been, it's because she's all muscly. What do you expect? Rhea Ripley used to be all muscly. She never sucked in the ring as bad as Jade Cargill does. So it's like, just because you're a muscle person doesn't mean that you necessarily are going to be a stiff. But, Mrs. Brandon Phillips here is going to get carried to maybe a passable match if she's lucky. But I don't know. I would have zero expectations of this match. I mean, it might qualify as a semi-main event match legitimately because it is Rhea Ripley in a women's title match and whatever. And Jade Cargill is at least a name that they're pushing a lot. But, that's where, the middle part of this show, they could really, really lose the crowd because who knows what they're going to be like after the ladder match. And I think this is going to be a bathroom break match there, which I would normally never say about a Rhea Ripley match.
It'll be interesting to see. See, Rick, you're going about this all wrong on watching Jade Cargill matches. You're going by the old star rankings and all that. No, you got to watch the Jade Cargill matches, watching to see how bad it could possibly be. And if it's not that bad, it's considered a win.
Oh, because of the bar of expectations. Okay. All right.
It's so low. You got to set it real low. I mean, limbo champion of the world low.
Well, I think again, this match here is just, I expect it to blow chunks. And again, if somehow or another it doesn't, then just give Rhea Ripley all the Wrestling Observer Newsletter awards right now for the year 2026 if she can rescue this somehow. and carry Jade Cargill's carcass to any kind of semblance of an acceptable match.
This match is in the Allegiant Dome, not the Tokyo Dome. He ain't gonna win any of those Wrestling Observer newsletter awards. Come on now.
I see you working, Jake Jennings Digman. That is a great reference there. And I will say this, that like, as far as like how bad does Jade Cargill suck? Do you know what wrestler was working with her the most when she was in AEW? Do you know who she was being trained by?
Yeah, crap. Was it
Amdrag, baby. Amdrag,
oh, Dragons,
baby.
Okay,
yeah. I mean, if you could suck this bad after being trained by Bryan Danielson, you are hopeless. So just, I don't know what to say other than this match is probably going to blow chunks. If it doesn't,
you'll be sitting there with bells on or popcorn and ready to give it 5 stars.
This is when you would want to bust out the Brian Alvarez -5 stars T-shirt for this match. And that would be my expectation. Anything above that is a win for them. The next matchup here for the United States Championship, I referenced before, and this is not going to be nearly on the level of the aforementioned Bret Hart, Steve Austin deal from '97. But I have the same feel when you're looking at this match here. You've got Sami Zayn, the champion, who has become more unlikable in the eyes of the crowd. Again, as kind of a whiner, right? As Bret Hart was getting to be perceived when he turned heel versus Trick Williams. Not even going to begin to compare him to Austin, but the crowd getting behind him, notwithstanding the fact that he's not pandering to the crowd. The crowd finding Trick Williams to be pretty cool. It's a thing where, again, I would expect the same outcome here. Not that Trick Williams is going to be unconscious, bleeding out the forehead or anything like that, but Sami Zayn's going to screw him. Trick Williams will complete the turn by getting the sympathy of the crowd. Sami Zayn will complete the turn by getting the complete and utter enmity of the crowd for screwing over their new hero, Trick Williams. That's how I see it going, and I think that this will be sort of a rare, unmitigated win, for the nights of the either of the nights of the show here. I expect this to be a strong point.
I agree with everything you just said.
Okay. Isn't it great when life works that way? Okay.
Sometimes,
right.
all I can do is just reiterate about everything you just said. Is more like kind of where I see it going.
Okay, yeah, and again, they could do a lot worse than that. The booking that they've been doing points to this outcome. So just go ahead.
And they have a chance to make a real big babyface star with Trick Willie. I like his shtick.
They do have that chance, and it's a thing where, again, like I said, this is where they might start to prove me wrong, because where I've been saying that, like, I keep hearing about this endless line of guys from NXT that are going to be superstars. Well, again, you have to prove it, and what you have to do ultimately is concentrate on a handful of guys at a time here. And since they brought up Bron Breakker, it's been hit or miss with him, but probably more hit than miss. So Bron Breakker was not exactly the first in this wave, but sort of was at the front of it. You're now seeing it with Obafemi. You're seeing it, I think, with Trick Williams here. So you're seeing guys start to emerge. And then Jacob Fatu, again, not an NXT guy, but still as one of the guys that they're looking to build around for the future. So in terms of Obafemi, in terms of Jacob Fatu, whether he wins or loses, he needs to come out of this very strong in the eyes of the crowd. Trick Williams. The thing I think that we would agree upon in one of the rare optimistic things that I would say for the 2 nights of the show is they have a chance to really, really kind of establish some guys for the future as far as like the next wave of guys. And Trick Williams, as you said, is right there in that mix.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed, and that needs to be a priority in this. We mentioned not being able to make stars. They have a chance on this night to make 2 of them in Obafemi and Trick Williams.
Absolutely, yes, and I think to further establish Jacob Fatu as well, because I think he's a main eventer in the future as well. The next matchup here, again, this is one where in the spot they have it, you would look at it like it might be a plausible semi-main event match. I don't regard it that way because it's just been kind of going on forever. The Demon Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio in a singles match. And we've been hearing a lot of talk here about. I might as well at least make a funny point about some of the depravities of the world here. We've been hearing a lot about the 21st century and like, oh, one of the worst things is forever wars, America and their forever wars. I think we've had forever wars that have gone on longer than the Finn Balor babyface tease, which they have eventually gone with. And it's like, this is a guy where, again, when they first called him up from NXT, and again, he had the shoulder injury right off the bat. Thanks for mutton, Seth Rollins. But, again, Finn Balor at one point in time, I'm not going to say at like a Prince Devitt level of greatness, but, he was close at one point in time. And ever since then, I've just seen him as like, man, this guy should be so much bigger than he is. And there's nothing about the way that he was in Judgment Day or has left Judgment Day that's made me see him that way even less. He's a guy that I think a good part of his prime has been wasted in WWE. Dominic Mysterio is a guy that they're building for the future, and he's a dominant part of what they're doing with AAA, which, as he probably should be. And this match will probably get over with the crowd, I would say, more than it deserves to, in my humble opinion. But and I guess they would regard that as a success if it did. If the Dominic Mysterio heat can basically carry this match, much like Rhea Ripley has to physically carry the match with Jade Cargill, I think the Dominic Mysterio heat has to carry this match, Jake.
I agree with you, and I also think at this point, that the Demon almost has to win because he's lost like the last 3 matches he's had here. So if he doesn't win, then especially to someone like Dom, who's supposed to be like a sniveling little weasel of a heel, he's already like 1 foot in the grave. At this point, you might as well put the entire character in the grave if he doesn't, put out a dominant performance against Dirty Dom, who also can put over somebody like $1 million and not lose any heat over it at the same time. Maybe the segues into a feud with Finn Balor and AAA with Dom. I'm not sure what they do with that, but it's been the slowest of slow builds. It'll be a spectacle match. It'll be interesting to see, whenever you have the Demon on the card, it's a spectacle. It'll be interesting to see what Dom does to counter that, and what other Judgment Day involvement, what other spectacle is added to it. But good for one thing I will comment on was several years ago when we were talking about the next face of the Luchadors on one of these breakdowns, and I told you it's Dominic Mysterio. I stand by that. It's Dominic Mysterio.
And I will say too that, like, to me it sort of exemplifies the whole thing of like why I prefer pro wrestling to sports entertainment, because I'm not going to diminish anything that Dominic did to get over, but it's like he's not a crappy worker. He's not Jade Cargill with 2 left feet or anything like that. But it's like people compare him to Eddie Guerrero, but it's like he's basically Eddie Guerrero if Eddie was like mid in ring and had the whole Latino heat greatness as a character. And I think Dominic stands out by the standards of today. I think if he were in there with Eddie Guerrero of the early 2000s, I think he'd be exposed. But compared to what there is today with this crop, I think, what he does in ring, if you want to call it that, kind of, it gets over to a decent enough degree. So,
I think that was a pretty good backhanded compliment that you wouldn't mean to be a backhanded compliment, because anybody in the ring with 2000 Eddie Guerrero from today would be the drizzling shits. So that, like, I'll take that compliment.
I don't know that anybody would be. I don't know that Bryan Danielson or Kenny Omega.
2026. Okay, no, Danielson, no, not anymore.
Okay, Omega, Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher.
There he is. There he is. There's your boy.
Yeah, take a shot at home, everybody.
Hey, I got to tell you this with Kyle Fletcher. I saw one of his promos popped up on my feed on YouTube, right? And he's like wearing a suit and everything. I forget what he was talking about. Oh, he was reading something, and it was absolutely just made me pop. And I'm like, because the last time I was like, I have to compliment the amount of character development and progression he has done now. He's not just some random guy. He's actually like developing his own personality, and good.
He's the
good for him as far as building a star. Yeah, and they've done a really good job with that.
The proto star, and he's done a tremendous job with it. And that's where, again, To me, he's like a full spectrum kind of a thing because he's built his character the same way that Dominic Mysterio has, but he backs it up in ring like very few in the world today. So I just, I mean, again, I have to be honest as far as my biases about the product and everything like that. I think the nice things that I would have to say about Dominic Mysterio can't help but be backhanded because Dominic Mysterio is getting to be towards the apex of sports entertainment. And I grant him that, and he deserves credit for that. It's also kind of reminding me why I'm not that much into sports entertainment as opposed to pro wrestling. So, it's like that's the kind of thing that people like if they like that kind of thing, I guess is how the saying goes or something like that. So we get to the main event of night 2, which traditionally has been the real main event of WrestleMania the last couple of years. It is for the World Heavyweight Championship. And you have the reigning defending world champion, Charles Manson Punk versus Roman Reigns. And that's how we AEW loyalists refer to him, Jake Digman. That's how any elite stands refer to him. And again, I talked about it before with the main event on night 1, that it's built around Pat McAfee, WCW 2000 style booking of, characters going on screen and saying things like who booked this crap and whatever. But here, this is very elevated compared to that. It's one of the main event participants saying to the other main event participant, who would ever want to watch you? You're too old. So once again, let's just, kind of.
Which the funny thing is the guy calling the 47-year-old old is 40.
Yeah. So there's that.
So there's that.
Yeah. And and here's
the
thing,
if it was MJF saying, "Hey, you're old," okay, we'll go with that. But
right.
Like Roman Reigns, you're almost as old as him.
Yes, exactly. And I actually believe it's good, and it is one of those things where, again, CM Punk's been back since the end of 2023, and as weird as this is to say, for Roman Reigns, who was foisted on us for an interminable number of WrestleManias as a quote-unquote babyface, John Cena style, of where he would be the guy getting booed, and then had the interminable reign as the tribal chief here, which just went on way too long because it was the same thing time after time after time, endless amount of
got cut way too short. Way too short. we could have passed Hulk Hogan by now.
Yeah.
Just saying. Anyway, go on. Could have, should have.
Yeah. And
they cheered him anyway. So I mean, come on, just let him go away long enough. It's the Fed. If I go away long enough, you will cheer me when I come back.
Well, I was going to say
some traitor who had to go, start a little side project had to come back and make his dead daddy proud.
Yes, and so when you look at it, I mean, it seems incredible to say this, because of, again, all the WrestleManias of the 2010s that sucked having Roman Reigns on top, and the heel run as champion that went on way too long. But compared to where CM Punk is right now, Roman Reigns winning this is the fresher option, because we haven't seen babyface world champion tribal chief, and that has some legs in it. That's a thing where, again, because, and Roman Reigns is even openly saying, he can see the end. The end is in sight, whatever. For CM Punk, this has been his last great run on top. Great's not the word I'd use, I guess, but he'd call it that. And be the same thing with Roman Reigns, is that last run on top as a babyface out there, take on all comers, and basically be, the babyface version of the heel tribal chief who got so stale with all the outside interference and everything like that. Roman Reigns finally being a successful babyface world champion to cap off his at least active in-ring career. I think that's where this is going. People have speculated about a turn one way or another. They're not going to turn Roman yet again, because, again, it's like, even though it was, 2 years ago, the whole, tribal chief as a heel main event or whatever, that still feels stale, even though it's 2 years old. They're not going back there. CM Punk at this point as a heel, to be honest with you, and again, maybe this is the bitter elite stan in me, but I don't think CM Punk is ever going to want to be a heel in WWE just because of the things you have to do to be a successful heel and the things you have to say. And that, like, I think CM Punk doesn't want to have it be perceived as like, see, he really is a locker room cancer. Well, he's like, once you're a heel, you got to commit. And then when you commit to it, all these other things come with it. I don't think CM Punk has any interest in ever being a heel ever again. I think these guys basically just kind of go their separate ways after this match. CM Punk gets diverted into something else. Roman Reigns is the babyface champion. That's how I see it going.
Yeah, I can see that, and I had an idea, but you kind of talked me out of it, where I was thinking of this, so I'm going to take the happy medium on this one. I think Roman Reigns wins the championship with the unexpected and inadvertent help of a fresh heel turn Sami Zayn that makes you, because we mentioned this is a jumping off point, so then everyone's going, is the bloodline back together, what's he doing? And then Sami Zayn, who is the United States champion, does the acknowledgement of his tribal chief, and then Roman Reigns is just kind of like, I don't know what this is. And of course, because we're selling the next show, the speculation is there, is the bloodline back together? Or, does Roman know what's happening? Is this where we're going with it? And then you could also leave that to a Zayn v Punk feud, because Roman's still going away. He can be on TV every week. So there's your TV feud for CM Punk, and it freshens up Sami Zayn as well, and also opens up a lot of doors to, if they want to eventually reunite the bloodline as heels, they can, or depends on what they want to do. But it's just like I that's the I would reunite them, but I'm a bloodline mark, so I'll be fully honest. Much as you are for Kyle Fletcher, I am a mark for the bloodline. I liked the dominant run. Was it stale? Yes, and I enjoyed it because it was consistent, and I like consistency. And when the bloodline was on top, stadium sold out. Now it is what it is. But you sold me on the idea of Roman doing it by himself, as to cement that babyface run that they always wanted and they never got. So it's going to be intriguing. I think we can both agree that Punxsutawney Phil isn't leaving with the World Heavyweight Championship that night, though, and which is for the best. And I just wonder if we'll ever get the payoff to the Punk v Rollins feud, or the Roman v Rollins feud, for that matter, too. Who knows?
Yeah, those remain to be settled down the road potentially. And I think good old company man Punk is not going to be leaving with the title here. And your scenario is interesting, but I think my scenario is better for business, because I think having Roman cemented, this is Moment Mania after all, and the whole thing of Roman gets that moment. Roman finally becomes the guy that they thought he was going to become when they put the Shield together in 2012. This is the crowning moment of where he is a wildly popular, wildly over franchise babyface champion. And even though it's the last big run of his career, in all likelihood, it's, what it's kind of like? It's kind of like, in a way, John Cena is now officially the man. He has taken the baton from The Rock in 2013, when John Cena was starting to wind down his career.
Right, exactly the same thing.
What is it with this company?
Much like The Rock was now the man when he took it from Hulk Hogan in 2002, and then immediately left and went to Hollywood.
Yes. This company, man, like, they wait until it's not on the back nine of a guy's career, like the 16th hole of a guy's career, and then it's like, you're the man now. Oh, great. This last year or so, if that, is really going to be something. I've wasted a dozen years getting here, but this next year better really count. But I mean, that's where I think they're going to go. Your idea is intriguing because of what it sets up, but it's like, I don't think because this is Moment Mania, they want that moment at the end of and the fireworks are going off and the people are going batshit and whatever, as opposed to like, what just happened here? Is the bloodline back together? Tune in tomorrow night. Your idea is intriguing, but they're not going to sacrifice your idea for the moment, I think.
I agree with you.
Okay, yeah.
So watch them do my idea.
Which would be the dumbest thing ever, because, again, if that happens, it'll be like they can still give Roman that reign. They can still give him the babyface reign where he's on top and it's like he's the dominant guy of today, but they're going to start it in a way that doesn't fit where they're going with it. I think they're going to want to start the reign in a way that is going to be consistent with it. And if I may make this point, you look at the whole John Cena farewell tour of last year, which we can point out all the things that went wrong with that this isn't necessarily the equivalent for Roman because he's only teased out in a couple of interviews like, hey, this is my last contract or whatever. But like, we know the clock is ticking with this guy as far as the amount of time he's got left in this. Honestly, with everything that he's put his body through for having somebody where, again, I think he's beaten leukemia into remission like twice. And you hate to say this, and I don't want to put this out into the world, but nothing is promised in this life. You never know what could happen with that there. So you have to sort of live for the here and now, and particularly if you're booking Roman Reigns, and you need this reign to be impactful for him. So that's where I think they're going to go in that way and cement him as heading up one of the two brands. They're going to do their draft thingy soon enough here, which is going to, move around guys. I will say
around 4 people.
Yeah, but like, and I also think as well that like where for as critical as I was and for as much as I buried the whole thing at the outset here, I will be a little bit more fair as you and I are bringing this full circle. And in the sense of like, it is not easy to book for something like WrestleMania in the sense of you essentially have too many promotions here. And you do, most of the year anyways, keep them separate. But for WrestleMania, you are tasked with making, quote unquote, the biggest matches. And so that's a thing where you have to pluck from here and from there. You can do linear booking on a show throughout the year. You can do, and even going up to SummerSlam, because there's not really much, I think, in the way of crossover stuff with SummerSlam. With WrestleMania, where the crossover stuff is sort of baked in the cake of where we're going to pluck from here and there to try and get the best matches and everything like that, that's what really kind of makes it tough. Because you have so many different possibilities, it is easy to overthink it. And if there's one thing that they're excellent at, PhD level at, it is overthinking what's on their roster, Jake Digman. So the very structure of this that the corporate system demands, a separate thing for Raw and for SmackDown, I continue to think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if it was one brand and if you did, enough stuff back and forth. And yeah, you could have maybe, 3 secondary titles or something AEW like, to kind of, pad it out between the shows. I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, it'll only be the same guys on TV on both shows. I'm like, well, that's if you want it to be that way. If you were committed to trying to build a bigger roster, you could push more guys at a time. You could experiment with things more. But as long as they're, it locked into the whole thing, as it looks like they are from now until the end of time, of separate brands, I think that makes it harder to book a show like WrestleMania because of the expectation that you will be crossing over to try to make the best of it from both sides here.
And that's a whole other topic that we could talk about for another whole 2 hours if we really wanted to. And maybe one day we will, but today is not that day.
Today's not that day, but I wanted to bring up that point towards the end because just like in fairness, for as much as I've buried them on the other points here, I think the system that they have makes it harder for a show like this. Do I think they could have done a hell of a lot better? Of course I do. Do I think that there were injuries that got in the way? Yes, there were. It made it harder, but I think it's way too easy to give them slack on that kind of thing as opposed to what this ended up being. I predict that it will be a show at the end of the day where people will say, for the most part, they didn't love it, but they liked it. That's how I think it's probably going to get over with most of their audience. You think that too? Okay.
Yeah, same.
All right. I
think it's going to be like, inoffensive wrestling. Perfectly acceptable wrestling, Not going to be remembered forever, but also not be like, one of the greatest. I think it'll just be there, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
It won't be the WrestleMania 30 of today, but it also won't be the WrestleMania 11 of today. What would be the prototype? Well, you were there. No, it wouldn't be the WrestleMania 18 of today, right? Because what's going to be Hogan Rock? There's no Hogan Rock on this show.
Yeah, there's nothing.
The WrestleMania 15 of today? I don't know. That could.
Yeah. I mean, that could rack our brains for a while trying to think.
I didn't mean to give us a brain teaser on the way out the door.
WrestleMania 26.
Okay, yeah, the WrestleMania 26 of today. I think they would take that. They would take that if it were to happen. I wonder what's going to be the Shawn Undertaker of this show. But
It was going to be Gunther and Rey Mysterio, but now it's not.
Yeah. 1-1 could be Gunther and Seth Rollins. You know what? Let me end it on this note. What do you think is going to be the best match out of both nights? I'm going to say Gunther, Seth Rollins, narrowly ahead of Fatu and McIntyre.
For the kind of people who like to rate things at star ratings at Tokyo Domes, that's going to be the best match of the night.
Okay.
I think as far as a star-making performance goes, it's going to be Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. But as far as you're doing, like, star ratings and, like, moves and false finishes and kickouts and all that stuff, I think it's going to be Rollins and Gunther by far.
Okay.
With a close second being Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre.
Okay, so we agree on the 1-2 in that
Yeah.
regard, if we're using that criteria. Okay.
Yep.
Well, all I can say is great minds think alike, and there's no greater mind to discuss this with. And also, when we talk about it on the show, MMA as well. I have to mention this here to get this in. Of course, Caged Thunder, the Northeastern Ohio-based MMA product out there, the finest MMA on God's green earth that you are going to find. My man, Jake Digman, right there in the mix with it. Ring announcer, behind the scenes impresario. Jake, talk about that here for a second. I know you've got some great events coming up that people will be able to sample.
Yeah, we're bringing back kickboxing. We're doing Cage Thunder presents Extreme Kickboxing. Happy to work with my buddy Ryan Madigan again. We're co-promoting this one with Extreme Kickboxing. It's called Extreme Kickboxing Vengeance. I'll be hosting that event. It'll be taking place on next Saturday. I don't know if it's going to drop, but April 18th. It'll be taking place on April 18th at Chaparral's in Akron, Ohio. It's got a lot of legends of the kickboxing world. Aforementioned Ryan Madigan, Pete Sugarfoot Cunningham will be there, as well as pros Jason Jaguar Jones. He's fought all over the world. He's taken on Slick Will Calhoun, and then one of the other pro fights I'm really looking forward to on that one, two guys from the MMA cage, two of the most exciting fighters with knockout power in mixed martial arts in the area, in the regional scene. Undead Jeremy Riley is going to be taking on Will Baxter, and I think that's going to be quite the show, quite the spectacle between those two. We've got a lot of MMA guys that competed in Cage Thunder. They're going to be on that kickboxing show. Tickets are only $25 for GA for that one. They're on sale. There's still some good seats available for that at CageThunderMMA.com. And then we're really excited. May 23rd, we're coming to the Huntington Convention Center in downtown Cleveland, Ohio for the first time ever. It's going to be Cage Thunder 39, Fight Night in the Land, a take on the old Fight Night in the Flats name. It's Fight Night in the Land. It's going to be just announced the main event tonight, 6-0, pro featherweight Ben Mudbug Williford. He's going to be taking on this a guy who's 4-1 prospect out of Florida, Luis Perez, I believe, is Luis Prince Perez. I just shared a video on the Cage Thunder page of this dude, all sorts of trash talking. When there's trash talking, it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a loaded amateur card, the Ohio Championship, the OCL, Ohio Championship League. Their flyweight champion is fighting the Cage Thunder flyweight champion. Dom Savoca is the Cage Thunder amateur flyweight champion. He's going to be taking on the OCL amateur flyweight champion, Ray the Slim Reaper. Ray the Slim Reaper will be taking on Dom Savoca. That's going to be one hell of a fight. Chase Arcangelo out of Cleveland, Ohio, the dude who brought Wardlow to the show down in Canton, will be making his pro debut. He's going to be taking on Sam McGuigan. There's also going to be our former amateur featherweight champion as well, Cody the Warrior Wilson. He'll be making his debut against James Haley, and James F. and Haley, a lot of people, including our own commentator Norm Carrero, flat out said, dude, you're being set up for this fight. And Haley took exception to that and is out to prove that no, I'm not. And I'm going to be intrigued to see that one. We've got bunch of great more on there. Casey Malone coming off of his successful win in his MMA debut, taking on Carter Cook, son of Ohio MMA legend John Cook, used to own Evolve MMA. He's back on the card. This one is stacked top to bottom. the show is already halfway, if not three-quarters of the way sold out, and it's all the way in May. So this one is going to be quite the spectacle. I'm excited for both of them, and I'm just excited to be a big part of the Northeast Ohio combat sports scene and just continuing to do what we do. From day one, as you've known me for 20 years, I've always said I don't compare what we do to what other people are doing. I hope they put on the best product they can for the audience that's coming to see their events, because I know that we're going to put on the best product that we can for the audience coming to see our event, and I'm excited for both of these. And give us a follow on Instagram at Cage Thunder MMA on Instagram, or Cage Thunder on Facebook, and tickets and everything is available on CageThunderMMA.com, and we've got all of our full fights up on the Cage Thunder YouTube page as well. So lots of stuff out there, and I appreciate the time to give it a plug, Rick.
No problem. Yeah, because everything that you have been doing with this for your 20 years on the scene has been really, really incredible. And you mentioned a Luis Perez before, and I find it to be very, very intriguing, because here at my HOA, we have an employee named Luis Perez, very nice guy. And I wonder if he's been doing some colorful moonlighting, the likes of which I've not been informed about.
As a 125-pound professional MMA fighter, not based out of Florida, that's quite the moonlighting.
He's not 125 pounds. So, okay. So we've established, he's probably also twice the age of this guy as well. So, okay. So well, the coolest thing is that, like, do you remember, like, the one, I think, like, Miguel Perez from, like, the Bariquas back in the late 90s?
Yes.
Like, this
Harry Back Bariqua.
Yes. I think, like, and, like, his father, I think, was like Antonio Roca, if you remember from the 60s, big star there. His tag team partner, I think, was like Miguel Perez Sr. I think that was this guy's uncle. He was telling me this. Like, holy crap.
Of course it was.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's, so that is hilarious. But yeah, Cage Thunder is the apex of the MMA world vis-a-vis quality. So yes, we'll be following everything you got going on there with that. And the apex of quality is always talking pro wrestling with you, Jake Digman, and my great friend, great FDH Lounge dignitary. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence here to help break down WrestleMania 42, my man.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, and have a good one. And hopefully I'll see you on May 23rd at the show.
Yeah, I expect to be there. That is going to be awesome down there in Cleveland. I look forward to that, just as I look forward to every chance to talk to you and to see you. Thank you, buddy, and thank you, everybody, for checking out FDH Lounge mini episode 1917.